Hello everyone. Can you hear
Hello.
me?
Yes, I can hear you perfectly.
Hey, yes. Good day to you all. Actually, I am Rohan, and it's my pleasure to be your host today. And so, welcome back to our September Stoke. Today's discussion it's actually about the artistic project-based learning for English language class, which will be presented by Mr. Arga. You're gonna know about him more just a few minutes. If it's the first time for you to attend Teacher's Talk, just let me briefly give you an overview. My English Club is a non-profit community of practice dedicated to English language teachers or future teachers from all backgrounds worldwide, which provides various discussion forums and workshops. Actually, Teachers Talk, Teachers of the World, it's a discussion forum between the English language teaching teachers in Indonesia and worldwide, which aims at promoting peer discussion, reflective practice, and intercultural awareness, which is held once a month and is open for everyone around the globe. You can watch the recordings from the last year by clicking on this link and we can send it to the chat box. So also let me get you to know our magnificent facilitators today, Miss Levy and Miss Levian Venada. She has an MA in the English language teaching with the University of the Southampton, UK. She's an amazing English language teacher and curriculum developer based in Indonesia. She is also a teacher trainer for a non-profit movement in Indonesia, which is concerned with, training area, teachers research and virtual exchange. And finally, she's the founder of My English Club. Thanks for her for gathering us. And come on to our exceptional facilitator, Mr. Richard Buckley. He has an MA in Education Leadership and Management with the Open University in UK. He holds the Cambridge Delta Principal Academic Quality Officer at the University of Wales Trinity, St. David, UK. He is also a former guidance counselor at the University of Wales Trinity, St. David, UK. And finally, taught English with the British Council and university level. So hope you are enjoying our discussion today, and let's get to know Mr. Argat. And the floor is yours, Miss Levy.
Okay, thank you, Rowan, for the kind introduction. So, hello, everyone. Welcome back for those who join us in the previous talks, because we've been doing this for 2 years now. Yeah, so welcome back for those who joined us before. And for those who join us for the first time, as Rowan said, welcome. And it's a great pleasure to see everyone here today. So yeah, my name is Lefi. I will be your moderator for today. And our discussion today will be sparked by the presentations entitled Artistic Project-Based Learning for English Language Classes. So I'm sure that to some extent you might have employed some or assigned your students with an artistic project or a creative writing or something like that. Yeah, so let's talk a bit about that. Let's discuss about that. But previously, we'll have a presentations that will be delivered by our amazing representation today, and I will get to him soon. So Arga, and he's there. Hello, Arga. How is it going?
Hi.
Yes. Thank you for joining us today. And so he had an MA in literary studies at the Faculty of Cultural Science with the Gajah Mada University in Yogyakarta. And he also an interpreter for a narrative project from Canada. He's also an author for a writing Quota Prize for You, Window of Wonders. And finally, he's an English teacher for Cambridge examinations. Yeah, so thank you again, Arga, for sharing your best practice, especially in assigning your student with some artistic tasks. Yeah, and I'm sure that will spark lots of
Yes.
discussions in the breakout room. Okay, so
Yeah.
I'm just go very quickly with the rundown. Yeah, so this is basically what will happen in our session. So we are now here in the opening and introduction. Yeah, and after that we'll hear the presentation from Arga. That will The concept is that we're having a flash presentation for 15 minutes, and after that we will have a chance to ask some questions to Arga for the next 10 minutes. Yeah, and after that the breakout room discussions, which is basically the heart of the teacher's talk, which is the pure discussion. That's what matters the most in each of our sessions. And during your I'm sorry, after that, one of their presentation from each group will share their findings or their most interesting part of their discussions to the forum. Yeah, when you as you get back to the to the main room, and then we will listen to the workbook, a pedagogical overview provided by Richard there. Yeah. Okay, so that's basically the arrangement of our session today. So without any further ado, I would like to, oh, sorry, just very quickly, one last thing, very quickly though. Um, yes, just the code of conduct. Please remember mute during the presentation and the sharing session after the breakout room discussions. And whenever possible, of course, please turn your video on. And of course, more importantly, later in the breakout room, please have an exciting and productive discussions. And I also would like you to know that the session, as the any other session, is recorded. Yeah. All right, then that will be everything. Now without any further ado, I would like to give the floor to Arga. Now you can share your presentation to us.
Okay, thank you for the opportunity. Allow me to share my PowerPoint. Okay, can you guys all see the PowerPoint?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Okay, so let me start. Well, good evening. And for this opportunity, I would like to share my experience with my primary and also IGCSE students in homeschooling. We've had a project, we call it actually Pandora Box, but the theme, Pandora Box is actually the main theme, but what's inside of the box is something that is unpredictable offer for me to my student. So, I have just been introduced uh, by our friend Levina at the beginning. So I think I just a quick rundown for this. So I am an English teacher in homeschooling. I'm handling kids with special needs, and there my interest in, of course, mythology and folktale. So therefore, this project has something to do with my interest, and of course, with the material that my students have in class. Okay, so talking about, I should have just, sorry, should have just done this earlier. Okay, talking about Pandora Box, it's something that I come out. Thinking about the narrative itself, it reminds us how human have lived with throughout so many pain, so many misery. But indeed, there is something stuck in the box itself, and we call it hope. That is something that I would like to offer to my students, something that is so unpredictable, something so unusual for them to think about. And in the end, they have the idea, something that is so unusual that creates idea, that sparks an art for them to create. So I took two of this chapter from myth and legend. This is actually what the primary students learn in this chapter, which is myth and legend, and also in IGCSE, animals and us. So I took some of the essential part of these two, and then I made this project. So Pandora Box is part of a project-based learning that come across each chapter from primary and IGCSE Cambridge program. This project highlights two practical outcomes, namely student voice and choice and authenticity. Okay, these are the highlights that I come up with. So why come up with the student choice? Because I want my student to pick their own project for each month. And of course, the authenticity here reflects on their projects. To what have they made during the process of we're doing this? Probably it took 1 week. If they're really eager, it could have just finished within 3 days. But the longest time that we have mostly 2 weeks. So the student choice here make a decision about the project, including how they work and what they create, and express their own idea in their own voice. The authenticity is the project involves real-world context, task and tools, quality standard or impact, or the project speak to personal concern, interest, and issues in students' life. So this one is quote unquote from this site that I've mentioned on the top of it. And the deal that I made with my student are this. Okay, here are my students. There are only 3 of them in the primary, 5th grade. So I came up with an idea. I call it Future Sight. This happened actually in this semester. So every month they will choose one project in representing something. So in August, we have Independence Day. In September, we just had last week, Pandora Box. In October, we have Halloween, and November, we have Thanksgiving. What's the Future Sight is about? So Future Sights are my project-based learning that happens every once a month, August to November, and have become the apple of my students' eye. Why become the apple of my students' eye? Because I made a deal for them to actually take the offer. Why is that? Think of it like this. Most of my students don't really like the ideas of mid-tests. They're like, oh, sir, we already have final tests, written tests. Do we really need to have a mid-test? So I come up with this idea. So I made a deal. If you're able to finish, because the mid-tests happen in the middle of October. So I said like this, if you're able to complete 2 projects from August and September, I give you a VIP pass for the English mid-test, only English subject. And they said, yes, we would agree to that. And the idea from Pandora Box itself, I happen to bring the theme of imagination. And come on, kids really love to explore their own imagination, lost in their own thoughts, and come up with something, I would say, ridiculous, even funny, even interesting. This is why this project happened. And I want them to explore, find their own expression, find their own piece of art within themselves. Okay, so it's like a deal for me. So this is what I actually quote unquote to my students. So mutual understanding is built upon a good deal. So if we made a good deal, so we can actually deliver this class both well. Okay, so I'll start by opening the Pandora box. What's inside of it? I've just mentioned that I come up with the ideas of the theme is about imagination. And there happens to be a model that I pick for this one. I call it chimera. Maybe most of you are not familiar with this term, this animal. It's very known in the biology. Chimera is actually something to do with genetics, a dual genetic to someone. But in this term, I come up with this one. Chimera is an illustrated work that requires pure imagination. The articulation of this project is displayed through writing, drawing, and of course, presentation. So let me just, there you go. This project will first introduce a newsletter. So I begin the class by giving them a news about cat fox as a new species in Corsica. And then as an approach to a concept of what is imaginary creature. For them, finding cat fox, it is something unusual. Like we usually see in fox, we have cat, but this time we have cat fox. So around that thoughts, we are involved in a discussion. So it will cover the common ground for the teacher and the student to exchange ideas and point of view about something unusual. And then I happen to ask them, what do you find something unusual? And they respond, a singing crocodile. The other say a dancing spoon. And the other would say like a talking powder. Like, yes, what do you find them? Do you find them weird? Some of them say like, well, I find it very interesting. I mean, think about it. Having a singing crocodile would be so entertaining. Like Despite of the look, they they even focus on the voice alone. Like, it's okay, the looks can be ugly, but at least the crocodile can sing. That covers everything. It would be so pleasant that they would say. It's just fun having conversation with them in that way. So when we have come to a term, like we found that something unusual is an opportunity for us to explore. Therefore, I come up with the ideas that, have you ever thought about creating something unusual like a cat fox? So the fruit of our discussion, like the color of what abnormality is, bringing an unusual creation to come to life. That's why I bring Chimera, because it is the model of our project, representing the term hybrid, a mixture of materials, and the embodiment of possibility, the art. Yes, you may notice that some of the students really love, a big fan of unicorn, a big fan of Pegasus. Why they like that? Because they like the idea that horse has a wing, horse has a magical glitter all over their face, just so magical. That's what art is. It creates possibility to what is usual. So the storytelling or narrative has always been the vital spark of art. That's why I bring Pandora, the myth of Chimera, because that's the sparks that I want to bring to my student. Like, it resonates to what Sharma said, everything is created twice. First in the mind and then in reality. What have come to their mind, the ideas of Chimera, and I want them to create one of themselves. We even play a role play in the class. I call them each professor during our presentation. I too, I make the drawing too. So all of us become the student and all of us present our unusual creation. So what are the project? What is the project for this one? I call it Chimera Imaginary Creature. So come up with the concept of what is hybrid, and then here's the imaginary creature that they might choose. You want to pick mouse dog, you want to pick elephant bird, prawn shark, cheetah beetle, and if you pick one of this, you may share some of these fun facts. You may talk about their origin. Maybe you can come up with the name, or maybe come up with the background, appearance, of course. What does it look like? And ability. Yes, every ability has always been representing to what animals can do. Like dog is really good at canine, and dolphin and bat is really good at echolocation, something like that. Kids, they really are familiar with that ability. So these are the concept of hybrid, snake, lion, goat, but I only bring two within this context. However, if my students are not able to pick one of these, they can actually pick outside of this list. So I asked them to create one imaginary creature from the given table or any preference. Add fun facts for descriptions. Feel free to use any medium. They can use any medium. This is the part where my student voice and also choice. So you can use any medium to help you create this. Using Microsoft Word, you are welcome. Canva, PowerPoint, or maybe use any application for this. And after they have made this, they need to present it in the class. And then the only thing matters in this project is imagination. They don't need to browse into the internet to find the real origin of that anymore. I said, nope, let's just use your pure imagination on this one. It would be a lot better because you don't have any restriction. You created your own. Should I draw it, digital sketch, or AI app? One thing interesting about my student, each of them has a different talent. So one can actually draw, the other can actually operate application, and some other are able to sketch it by digital. So that's why I give them freedom to choose any medium you would like to choose for this. And surprise, surprise, they're this is what come up to be the presentation. Someone come with the mouse dog. This is from my student, Misha. She choose a mouse dog. So these are her presentation. I don't actually ask like, hey, where is the origin or where is the background? I let her make her own. To what her understanding, let her present what she has made so far. She come up with special ability, if you notice, each of the animal. She happened to know what is the ability of dog, and she happens to know what's the ability of mice. Combining it one, she made a mouse dog with the very particular abilities from the representing animal. The idea of this one always fascinated me. Like, wow, the kids really knows what they can do. They know something about the animal that they are capable in their environment, and to make one in combination, it's interesting. They must have an area of interest. Okay, military interest, check. Yes, think about it. I ask Misha, what do you think about this one? What is the area of interest for this one? She said like military will be nice since we have a good ability to sense underground bomb to what the mouse can do, and also the ability of canine. That's actually good for weapon. I was like, wow, you really think that through. It's just having such discussion, although we don't take it that seriously, but still, kids really explore what they have in them. And here are the representing work from others. We have bark. This is a combination of shark and bee. Take a look at that. He even write an area of interest. There is even a battle mode. And my student create this one using Photoshop. And Isa, he create prawn shark. He literally sketched this using digital. And this Falcro is created by my 5th grade student, Morgan, using Canva. And he said, like, I digital draw the crocodile myself. Like, oh, that's good. See, each of them has their own quality in representing their own ideas. So I don't really give them limits. So we have to do it one, and everything must be, like formal. Like everything must be a unit. No, I let them use any reference they want. This only represent three of them. Sorry, it's just messing up with the presentation. Just turn your monitor to the left instead of your head. It's because I just turn it that way, that direction. Okay, this one, my other student used AI application, used Imagine. And this is what he came up. He combined leopard and also peacock, which looks so majestic. And he come up with this name, Panthera aphes, a hybrid animal of leopard and peacock. It is a majestic animal that came from Machu Picchu. I like the ability that he pitched, called Fata Morgana. It's able to create illusion of rainbow prism with its brightly colored feather-like skin. Don't judge the book by its cover because this feline, I like he chose the word feline instead of cat. It's very sensitive despite its looks. And this Paco, my student, is instead he preferred to sketch it his own, like drawing a robot. So this is what he combined cheetah and also beetle. You might notice he got a detailed reference for the animal, but doesn't bring the whole package of special ability, interest, area of interest, or maybe what was the other one? Background or look. So instead, he just displayed like this. So this is what I come up in the class during our project. So project-based learning outcomes, we have students' voice and choice checked and authenticity check. You may notice every one of them use a different medium. That's because I want them to do so. That's because I give them freedom to bring whatever work they can come up with. And the result of this one is just fascinating. Seeing all of their work are just amazing. All right, so that's all I can share to my project based with my students, primary and also IGCSE class. Thank you very much. And yes, see you next time. And someone please close the Pandora box. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much, Arga, for the inspiring and insightful presentations. And of course, to share your best practice, the one that you have done to your students. Now, I believe there are lots of questions come up in everyone's mind at this moment. So I will allow you to ask anything. We have 10 minutes for the question and answer session. So if anyone wants to ask questions directly to Arga, this is your chance. So you can just click on the um, raise hand button. So then I can see if anyone is wanting to asking questions. Or maybe you can also type your answer on the chat. Then you can ask the questions that way. Yahya is raising his hand. Okay, Yahya, you're on.
Well, hello everyone. Yeah. And well, I wonder about
Hey.
what Pandora is because I've seen some friends of mine going to a cafe called Pandora in Makassar, and then they found a lot of board games there. Like um how did you come up with that word, like the Pandora? Did you make it by yourself,
Oh,
or is
Pandora.
a yeah, it's a concept created by another person?
Okay, thank you, Yahya. Would, would you like to answer it
Yep.
now or wait? Okay, go ahead.
Okay, sure. Okay, thank you for your question. Well, that's what I love about mythology. There's so many stories that you can pick to bring something into life. Like why I pick Pandora as my interest because the story itself is like you must have been familiar with the story of Adam and Eve, right? So the Pandora is related, but they are in the version of Greek. Why Pandora? Because the instruction was clear from the Zeus told Pandora, do not open it. Do not open it. It is just humans' curiosity that opens it and bring everything to life. So at this time, I would say from that mistake, we may learn something. So why not just open it one more time and then let's see what my student can learn about this, the ideas of imagination, weird imagination that they come up with. Like seeing it, you can see the picture here, Chimera. This is what the looks like. It looks so scary, but at the same time, it looks fascinating how they are well designed. It brings a spark for me. I come up with Pandora is that way because the ideas of curiosity. If you want to learn something, well, then open it. There is also an idiom of Pandora box. It's like we need to learn the consequence. So think of it like I had a role play during the presentation to my student. Like I told my student, okay, be responsible to all of your creation. Okay, we're creating a little Frankenstein over here, and they were all just laugh.
All right, thank you, thank you. I agree
Okay.
that it can be really really interesting to introduce, to give some spice in the project, and in this case is by using the term that is taken from mythology. That's some extra new information for the students as well, of course. Okay, thank you. Yeah. And is there any
Thank you.
more questions from anyone before we go to the breakout room? Okay, while waiting, can I ask, Arga?
Sure.
Yes. Oh, and by the way, if anyone wants to ask the questions on the chat, you are welcome to do so. Yeah, so I am a big fan of project-based learning. I agree that the project-based learning give a lot more than just learning the subject itself. So let's say using project-based learning for English can actually teach the students a lot more than just the linguistic aspect of English. And you have proven it through your best practice. You taught them how to
Yeah.
be, the values of being authentic and so on. Um, so I'm a big fan, and I always try to apply that in my own practice. Now, however, sometimes there are some concerns, for example, from the school itself. Yeah, especially if you work in a more formal educations, and also probably the concern of the parents. if they are looking at some artistic task or the project that is assigned to their children, um, there is a concern that if this whole thing about this project is all about fun, it's all about making the students feel comfortable with the lesson, but missing out the target lesson, the target or the aim of the lesson. So how do you deal with that? How do you ensure that your target lessons, let's say if there is a target about um, teaching grammar or teaching the other aspect of the skills other than speaking, for example, in that given lesson, how do you deal with that by at the same time assigning this artistic project?
Okay, it's a tough situation
Mm,
to think about it from the beginning because I need to come up with it's like I need to execute this idea of Pandora box, but I need a subject that actually resonates with this idea.
mhm,
So when I look back to my when I'm looking forward to my students chapter this semester, and I was given a fifth grade for this, and uniquely, I mean, sorry, surprisingly, I got one of the chapter that for this semester they learn about mythology.
oh, okay.
Yes, and
Mm,
also for the IGCSE, they learn about animal and us. So
mm,
in the primary, they just need to uh, understand what makes the difference between legends and myth.
mm,
And the ideas of this chimera, it's really representing myth. Why?
mm,
Because it's like a creation. I emphasize that it's something about creation, something about unusual. Doesn't involve any hero. You might think of it as a as a story of a myth. And
mm,
for the IGCSE student, because they learn how animal here is like the pick the human interest either from their let's say science lab,
mm,
like their relationship with human, their relationship with community.
mm,
So I bring this to yeah, together all of this to a different level,
mm,
primary and also IGCSE. So we are in the same common ground. We
mm,
create to reflect on what chapter we are dealing.
mm. I see. That is really nice. So you basically adopt your textbook and also your target
Yes,
lessons and then combine them and come up with that project. Yeah, that's really interesting. Thank
indeed.
you.
And
Thank you, by the way.
yes, and also this idea of Pandora box really put an interest to them because yeah,
Mm,
when they have accomplished this, they will no longer worried about English mid test because it's already a VIP pass.
that's one thing.
And the good thing is their
Mm,
parents also approve, like thank you for
mm,
making the class process a lot easier for them
yeah,
to deal. Like
of course, of course. That's the sound that you also have to listen, the voice that you also have to listen, right? The parents'
yes,
voice.
true.
Okay. Right. Okay. Thank you, Arga.
Yes, you're welcome.
Okay, so if there are no other questions, now I think this is the time that we are the time for the discussions. Yeah. So if that's okay, Arga, I will just stop your presentation and share some
Okay.
prompt questions for the participants. So here we go. Okay. Can you hear my, I mean, can you see my presentations by now? Okay. So I would suggest you to take a picture, take a screenshot of these questions on the board. Although I will still try to broadcast this to you to the breakout room, but that will be nicer if you can have your own questions at hand. So there are three prompt questions there that you can use for your discussions. First is, have you ever assigned an artistic or creative task in your classroom? And more importantly, how did it go? Did your student like it? Did they learn something and so on? And did you achieve the target of that given lesson, let's say? Yeah. And then the second one is, what kind of project did you do? Do you also do the same thing like Arga with the um creating some mythological animals or maybe else, yeah? I can tell that there are many teachers that can come up with a very, very interesting ideas. And then the second one, do you think it worked well? I mean, assigning an artistic project-based learning to fulfill the goal of the given lesson, especially. Yeah, so that is basically related to the first questions. Yeah, so those are the prom questions. And don't forget that in the breakout room, you are welcome to get to know to each other first. Yeah, so you are welcome to spend fun time and productive discussion there. Okay, is there any questions before we start? All good then. Okay, so I will start to assign everyone to the breakout room. I'm glad. Okay, so yeah, so welcome back to everyone.
We need more time.
Yeah, I know, right? It's always like that. It's always like that. I know.
I didn't notice there is a time limit.
There is. Sorry. Because otherwise we are going to do it, for hours, But
The
that's
rest
what
of the day.
I
Yes.
know. That's what
Yes.
happened when teachers meet, right? We keep, inspiring to each other, let's say. Okay, so as mentioned earlier, at this stage, each of the group have to send someone as representative and share the key points of your discussions. And we only got two rooms today, yeah, because apparently some people have to leave the meeting earlier, yeah. So then we only have two rooms here. So let's start from room 2. There are room 2 and room 3. So who are in room 2? If you still remember your partner and your room number.
Well, I think I was in the room too.
Okay.
Sorry. But the one who's gonna represent our group is Ahmed Eligadi.
All right. Please, the floor is yours now, Ahmed.
Okay, so in our group, participants discussed how do they use learning-based project and the importance of learning-based project. It's an approach which aims to enable students with critical thinking. It widens their imagination. It prepares them for real life situations. And also, each one has introduces or spoke about how he used based learning, project-based learning in his classroom. Also, we talked about the project that maybe just we raised the point, but maybe it's a point to discuss now. Maybe if you want the difference between project as a project, simple project, and learning project-based learning.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Is there anything you would like to add then?
Is there anything to
from your group, do you mean?
Oh yeah, sorry, because I joined the group late. And maybe I missed some of the points they have already been discussing. I'm not sure of that, but I just catch these points.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Ahmed. Ahmed that mentions that there was an electricity cutoff at home, yeah, so that's why he being disconnected from the meeting for some times. Okay, yeah, from group 3, is there anybody wants to, group 2, is there anyone would like to add some points that has been missing, or is that everything? All right, so I guess that's everything. Thank you. That's really important to start with the conceptions of and to differ the project and the project as a project and the project as a learning. That's something that what I understand from your discussions. Okay, thank you. Now, group 3. Who are in the group 3? I think were they with you, Rich?
I think that was my group with
Yes.
Elprida and Ayumi, I believe.
Hmm.
I don't know if either of them want to take this.
Yeah, Ayumi unfortunately had to leave this meeting earlier as well. So, Frida, if you would like to take the chance to share the interesting point from your discussions, you're welcome to do so.
If Prida's not available to right now, just as a very, very quick summary of what we discussed. Mostly, actually, we just shared specific experiences of the kind of task-based and project-based learning that we've used. Prida works with very young learners, including as like sort of 5 years old, but is actually able to use project-based learning to elicit quite a high level of language production from them, even at that age, which is something that I find quite impressive, because I think I would find that quite challenging. Ayumi similarly talked about using creative techniques beyond art, but also things like storytelling and script writing as techniques to elicit language, particularly at higher levels. We talked also about some of the affective filter issues, about how learners, particularly when they're teenagers, when they become quite self-conscious, they might be less inclined to share their real thoughts or feelings on things, and that art can sometimes offer a bit of a get-out clause or an alternative kind of route to expressing themselves that can do quite a lot to reduce those barriers. We talked about how sometimes learners can sometimes look to their classmates for validation of their work, and how this can sometimes be a barrier even in creative activities. So we covered like quite a wide range of topics within creative TBL and BBL.
That's really rich, really rich. Thank you. Yeah, okay. So thank you everyone for the productive discussion, and then also to share your interesting points here with us. Now, as we're done with that part, now this is time for us to listen to some review and some wrap up from Rich. Now the floor is yours, Rich.
Thank you very much. One thing I wanted to say, firstly, obviously, thank you to Arga for your presentation. We've had some really, really good presentations, I must say, across the... How long have we been doing this for? Over a year? 2 years? I'm not sure. Around that.
It's been 2 years.
Yeah.
More than 2 years. Goodness. Time does fly. We've been doing this for more than 2 years, and we've had some really, really strong presentations. And it's great to see that even after 2 years, we're continuing to see presentations that are innovative, creative, and that showcase teaching practice, which is really original. So I think that's fantastic, and it makes me quite proud to be part of this community. And I hope everyone here feels the same too. If you do, bring your friends along, because we'd love to hear more of their ideas as well. So thank you, Arga, for your presentation. It was innovative, it was creative, and it was interesting to see a different perspective. I'll be honest, the first time I looked at it, my first question was, how on earth are you going to convey the concept of chimera to young learners? That's quite a challenging concept, but actually, and this is in line with best practice in task-based learning and project-based learning. Of course, you start with a convincing pre-task, a pre-task that sets the expectations and that makes it clear to learners what is expected of them. So actually it followed that best practice element of a task-based or a project-based lesson, because, of course, from the outset, the expectations were set using a strong and a clear pre-task. So really impressive, I felt, from the demonstration, how learners are taken from that starting point and encouraged to reach an end point that is fruitful and meaningful for them using their creativity and the power of their creativity. A number of points that came up as well during the presentation, which are relevant to every lesson, things like autonomy, authenticity, personalization, differentiation, those core concepts that we should build into every lesson. Those were very strong throughout the presentation. It was very clear to me, and I think to everybody watching, how autonomy, authenticity, personalization, and differentiation were built into every part of the lesson plan. In terms of a quick review then of task-based learning and project-based learning, most of the time, by the way, we normally talk about task-based learning if we're talking about a single one-off task, and project-based if we're talking about something that extends across a longer period, perhaps with a more substantive end goal. But in practical terms, the kind of lesson planning choices you'd make and the kind of structure is quite similar. And the pedagogical rationale, very long words, I realize, the reasons why you choose that teaching style are basically the same. It's more or less structurally the same kind of thing. So task-based learning and project-based learning, they are generally less suitable for teaching accuracy. If you're teaching a particular grammatical point or a particular set of vocabulary items, they tend to be less useful, although you can still do it, of course. They tend to be more useful for encouraging fluency. And as was covered very clearly in this presentation, when you're trying to develop a rounded set of wider critical thinking skills, creativity skills, and so on. You may be familiar with the concept of the zone of proximal development. So if the learner is here, the learner wants to get to here. With the teacher's help, they can reach this. And what we're trying to do is to get them to be able to reach here without the teacher's help. That's an attempt at a graphic explanation of the zone of proximal development. Task-based learning and project-based learning, for that matter, are a great way of stretching that zone of proximal development. Particularly when we start teaching, many teachers start by relying on PPP, on that, presentation, practice, production method. It's convenient for teachers to work with that. It's quite teacher-centered. It's easy for us to see what we've taught. It's easy for us to observe the outcome. But what we might not realize is that if we're relying on it too much, actually we're limiting the student's ZPD. We're essentially saying what you are able to achieve is what I say you're able to achieve at the speed that I'm telling you you can achieve it. And you may not realize it, but that's kind of the effect we could be having. That doesn't mean PPP is bad, by the way. It absolutely has its uses. I still use it myself for teaching certain things. But one of the great things about task-based and project-based learning, of course, is that because it has built-in autonomy, it means learners can challenge themselves to work out where their own ZPD is. It challenges them to think for themselves how they're going to scaffold their journey to push it higher and to get there. It also encourages them to think of the teacher more as a resource and a facilitator rather than as the boss who rules over their life and tells them what they may or may not do in their every kind of interaction. So it encourages learners to think much more automatically and to sort of envisage themselves as autonomous learners. It builds that assumption in right from the outset. One of the challenges, I think, with project-based learning and with task-based learning, I have to say, though, is, and this picks up on the point that Levi made earlier around parental expectation and around stakeholder expectation. Perhaps the parents, or if you're teaching adults and they're funded by a business, maybe the people paying for the course might not quite understand the rationale. They might think, hang on, I'm paying for an English course, so I want to see grammar. I want to see, vocabulary memorization. So why is that not happening? So it's really important that you're able to justify your rationale. And again, Arga addressed how this particular lesson was part of a wider scheme of work that built towards a syllabus. So this lesson was, clearly justified and located in a particular context. That's absolutely fine. But it is an important question with TBL and with PBL, with task-based learning and project-based learning. because the emphasis is on fluency and because the emphasis is on developing skills, including critical thinking and creative skills, the issue is it then makes it very difficult to measure for language improvement. And this is just something to be aware of. So it's important you're clear what the goals are that you're trying to achieve. If I give you an example from my own experience of teaching task-based learning lessons to illustrate why this can be a problem. So I did a task-based learning lesson with a group of absolute beginners with basically no English and basically no reading and writing skills in English or familiarity even with the alphabet. When I worked in Sudan, this was with a group of absolute beginners, some of whom had never had formal education. I did a task-based learning lesson with them, taught entirely in English, where I set up the room to look like a hotel, and they had to check in successfully. I gave them no help. They surprised themselves how many words they already knew. I was able to elicit lots of language from them. They could work out hotel. Someone remembered the word room from somewhere. Somebody remembered, passport. People were remembering words that they must have heard somewhere. So it elicited a lot of language successfully, and it stretched them and it pushed them. If you'd asked them before the lesson, they would have said, we have no English. But after the lesson, they realized actually they do have some. So it was a fantastic lesson in that regard. But here's where it went wrong. As part of checking into a hotel, they had to complete the form. They weren't able to spell their names because, of course, they have basically no literacy in English. So I said, okay, so at this point, this is where I need to demonstrate the alphabet. I need to teach you the alphabet. But the challenge was I couldn't get them to see that this was important. They were like, oh yeah, but it doesn't matter, it's fine. And I'm like, well, no, it does matter. You will need to be able to fill in the form. But they took the view, well, no, it's okay. There's a wider cultural reason for this, quite complicated to explain, but basically in Sudan, for a number of reasons, when people write their names using Roman letters, the spelling can be quite arbitrary. So trying to stress that this is actually important and that you need to be consistent on documents. This is an additional new idea that I'm introducing into the mix, and it's confusing everyone. And this is a bit of a problem with task-based learning sometimes. Something you have to be ready for is you're trying to draw the student's attention to the salient language features, the relevant features. But as a teacher, your idea of what's salient or relevant might be different from the student's idea. Just because you think something's relevant, the students might not agree with you. And it might be quite difficult to persuade them that this is actually important. Imagine you're doing a task-based learning lesson on storytelling, and you're expecting the students to use past tense, but they just stay in present. And you keep telling them, okay, but remember, it's a story, so it happened before, so it's past tense. And they just keep ignoring you because from their perspective, they're telling the story. They are achieving the task. So what are you worried about? This is an issue with task-based learning to be aware of. Just be aware of what you want to be salient or relevant and how you're going to communicate clearly to the students that this is relevant and that you expect them to pick up on this. Because remember, what you think completing the task successfully looks like might be different from what they think it looks like. That's just something to be aware of and a particular pitfall. With the example I gave you just then about the alphabet, here's how I resolved it. The next lesson, I did a different task-based learning. This time, I gave them their imaginary logins for the computer system. They had to communicate their login to their secretary, who was at the other side of the room. And that meant they had to be absolutely perfect in lowercase, capital letters, punctuation, and so on. And this forced them to see this as a detailed attention task, where each time, if they wrote it incorrectly, I would look and I'd say, no, that's incorrect. And this was a way of getting them to see that actually accuracy does matter in certain things. So that's how I addressed it. I addressed it by using a different task, but also a task-based learning approach, which goes to show it is possible. If you design the task in a way that makes the language point 100% salient and 100% relevant, you can address that. But that's an important thing to bear in mind. There is an issue of saliency and of relevance. I think that covers everything that I meant to in regards to this presentation, but thank you once again for your really interesting points in the discussion. Thanks once again to Arga for a really innovative and actually quite challenging model of project-based learning. It was really, really interesting and inspiring to listen to. Thank you all very much.
All right. Thank you, Rich, for the rich explanations and wrap up. Okay, so yeah, I think everyone is agree that task-based learning, project-based learning is something that has lots of benefits, something that if we can apply it well in the classroom, we not only that teach language in itself, but also lots of other values in learning. And at this point, to ensure that we can really reach to that goal is that to make sure, as Rich said, that we also consider some issues like the saliency or the relevance of our lessons to again the linguistic targets of our lessons. Okay, yeah, so that will be everything from the discussion part. Yeah, thank you very much once again to Rich, to Arga, and to everyone for your interesting and enriching discussions in the breakout room. Now I will give the room back to Rawan.
So thank you guys. Hope you enjoyed our discussion today. And thank you for our facilitators for facilitating this. And thanks for Arga for such a beautiful presentation and creative. And hope you to see you next month, inshallah.
Let's have a quick
Thank you so much for this opportunity.
Sorry. If possible, let's have a quick group photo. So if anyone can, if you can turn your video on, this is the perfect time to do it. So, all right, here we go. All right then. Okay, 3, 2, 1. Okay, so thank you very much. I'll see you next month, everyone. Arga, thank you so much. See you.
I'm supposed to be thanking for this opportunity. Thank you. It's just a great experience.
Yeah, everyone. Thank you, Arga.
You have to join us.
Yes. I will.
Thank you.
Of course.
Great.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you
for the opportunity.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Ahmed. Thank you so much. Thank you, Cynthia. I'll see you guys again next month. Yes. Okay. All right, I'll stop.